Alright folks, what we have here is another Benchmade knife. It's the Mini-Presidio version. It is model number 525. Again, it's the mini version. It's a black class knife. Unique handle on this one. It's not G10 and it's not that certainly not the newer Volux they use on the Barrage knives, and it's not like the material on what they use on the Griptilians. It's almost like a rubberized feel to it, which actually I love in knives, and I wish you could see more of that. So I like the feeling. It's really grippy on your hands. So awesome handle. For me, I have medium-sized hands, I guess, and I have a preference for the smaller knives. So this one works for me. There's a little bit, even on the small version here, a little bit of an extension at the end. So that's kind of cool. Not that I really ever use that for anything, but this is just a solid feeling knife. It's the access lock, both sides, dual thumb studs. It's not assisted at all, which is fine, but it works pretty good. I did adjust the pivot screw a little bit after I got it, just to make it flip out a little bit faster. The blade's Loctite, it's solid. It's the 154 cm steel. Standard torque screws to get into the scales here. On this one, I didn't look up the stats. I'm not a big stats person, but the weight of it, I know this is a little bit, it's heavier than some of the smaller knives. For whatever reasons, these Presidio military knives, or black class, they're just heavier than some of the other Benchmade models. If you play with the full size one of these, it's just a beast. You've probably seen some other videos, but I've held that in the store, and it's just ridiculous. You couldn't really carry that around very well. It's just heavy, but that heaviness gives you, and I'll hit it on again, I do in a lot of my videos, that perception of higher quality, or in this case, durability. The weight of this one, it just feels like it's well made. It's gonna be, it's not going to fall apart with a lot of heavy use relative to some other knives. Again, this is perception, but that's just the way, again, that's how I see it. It's just solid. So you got some jimping back here, you got some jimping underneath here. What else? Ridges on the scales. I guess you have a swedge on the blade here. So positives, I like how it feels when you hold it. I love the it's not rubber, but the rubberized feeling of the handle. Love that. The weight it's not bad on this knife. I'm actually good with it, just because of the durability factor or perception of black clip all the way to the top. Works pretty good. It's not too tight, not too soft. Those are probably my positives on this knife. The downside on this knife is, depending on how you look at it, you may not like the extra weight, but for me, not bad. But so what the real downside on this knife for me was, and one of my largest factors, is out of the box sharpness. How sharp is it right when you buy it? Okay. This one is actually pretty bad. It was as bad or worse than my mini Griptilian that I often speak about. I don't know what's going on, if I'm just getting some flukes of knives, or Benchmade just doesn't have that same level of quality control around their sharpness. Maybe it's not a factor that they really looked at. And maybe I don't know something about the black class. Maybe for this style of knife and this particular model, they really would go with a more durable edge rather than a sharp edge. So the more sharp you have on the sharpness the blade is, the overall less durable it may be. it's going to not hold the edge as well. So maybe they wanted this one to be more durable, so sharp but more durable. I just thought it was ridiculously not useful. I could drag it across skin or a piece of paper, and it just wasn't what I wanted. And I need something that's going to cut a little more quickly. So I mean, I took it to the sharp maker. I'm not great with it yet. I think I'm getting better. I played around with it, so it's much more sharp than what I had. You can see it taking some skin off there, but I'm dragging my thumb across it. It's not it's not a lot of pressure, but it's 10 times better than what it was when I bought it. This may be one I'll eventually send in, but pretty cool knife. The other thing I'd comment on is the shape of the blade. It's probably hard to see with this video here. The grind on it, I forget the term. I'm not so good at remembering the term. It's not a flat ground, but it's maybe hollow ground on this one. The blade down sweep starts about right here, goes down, so you have about this much of angle on the blade. I've noticed that when you're cutting into something, let's say let's just say a box, right? It'll go in straight on pretty good, but it seems to slow down a little bit on this knife, meaning you have to put more pressure the deeper you go into the object you're cutting. So if it was a piece of fruit, you're really having to push a little bit, or a box, you can get it in, but then you really have to push to get it through that I get the wedge at the top of the blade there. This is common. It's not a flat ground blade, which would be much easier to slice through things. But I do have other knives that have this similar shape, and this one seems to be a little bit more difficult to kind of push through things you're cutting. Overall, pretty good knife. I would say, it's probably about a 6.5 or 7 on my likability scale. I have been carrying it around a lot. The axis lock's easier to use. It does have when you open it, it does have I don't know what you call it, but almost an assisted closing. And I just think it goes back to the quality. If you close it, you get to a certain point, right, and it's just going to go in by itself, which that's kind of neat. It has a nice little snapping sound when you do that. I've noticed that the lanyard hole is a little larger on this model, that's pretty neat. You can different options for lanyards if you wanted to do that. For me, I just typically just stick it in my pocket. I don't use the clip, wouldn't use a lanyard necessarily. So far so good. It's not the cheapest knife, but I think it's worthwhile to look at. Depends on what you want to do with your knives, but if you're looking for the smaller styled EDC knife of high durability, high perception of quality, other than the sharpness, this is certainly one to look at. Let me know if you have any questions or you want to see different photos or angles of this knife. Thanks all.